Hello YouTube, and welcome to yet another web app tutorial. And this one we're going to be creating the web app for our to-do application. So last episode we had created the client and put the user endpoints onto that client. We put the unit tests for that user in the server folder, so we can test whether the client and the server are operating correctly. So there was just a couple of example ones there. Of course, in the full app, there would be a lot more user tests in there. And now we're at the stage where we're able to access our um, server through our client, and now we want to be able to build the web app, which will then be able to log in, register users. So in this one, we'll be creating the third package of the three, the web app package, and we'll just get to the stage where we'll probably do like a hello world creation for that web app. Okay, so it's going to be just installing a lot of packages that we'll need to build the app, how we build the app, doing bits of package.json manipulation and tsconfig setup as well. Just before we do that, you may have noticed the last episode, actually, when I was writing out these tests, I wasn't getting the type hints as I normally do. And if you hover over one of the functions, I get an any rather than the actual type hint of that register. And the reason why, and that was just a simple, I'd say, mistype, or it didn't import it fully, was in the index.ts on my client, I've got here endpoints/user, rather than it needs endpoint/user.js, which when it compiles, it recognizes it's actually a JavaScript file. And if you then go back to the user tests, we'll see then when we hover over, it's now imported those types properly. So I get the type hinting as I code through mine. So if you do that, you see that when you go, I swear I've linked my methods right, but it's not appearing. It may be that you haven't got that .js in the import statement. So with that all cleaned up, I will then start with creating the web app. So to do that, we're going to create a new workspace, and we're going to call this one web app. And we'll create a new folder, web app, and we can cd into that web app folder and just do pm init to initialize a package.json file. Just saves me writing out some of the code. And in here, we want to actually do away with the main because we'll be using a bundler to code up the application, so we don't need that this one. And we're going to have here as a module again as we're going to have type as module. I can get my, there we go, type as module. And of course, we're going to also import our schema. Top here, and remember that this is a package schema. So again, this is just for helping us with the hinting for this file. And if we then create our tsconfig.json, so how TypeScript's going to interpret the TypeScript files in this folder, we're going to create a schema. We're going to create a JSON file, import the schema, and say this is a tsconfig schema. And we're going to say it extends the top level tsconfig file that we have. And then we're just going to add some compiler options, because instead of compiling for Node, we're going to be compiling for the browser. So what we're going to just do is say module is ES next. So it's the most recent, most up-to-date volume, up-to-date JavaScript. And we're going to say module resolution is going to be bundler. So we're going to be using a bundler called parcel, which will effectively bundle up all our code. So when we want to deploy it on a website, we don't want to pass lots of files back and forth to the user. We do this idea of bundling, where it takes all our JavaScript files and puts it into a single minified JavaScript file. So when someone accesses the website, they access the index.html, and then they download the JavaScript file, which then is the entire application, which then will boot up and run in their browser. And the type of application we're going to use is React, and React uses it has a endpoint, file name TSX or JSX. Sorry. So what we want to do is just tell TypeScript here that JSX is going to be of type React JSX. There's a couple of different flavors for that. So that's all installed, and we are pretty much ready. That's it. That's kind of set up the kind of workspace that we're going to be operating in. And what we want to do is now, like say, install some packages that are going to be for this web app. I'll just get the list here, and then we'll npm install those, and I'll run you through those independently. So the first one we're going to do is add a dev dependency, and we're going to do our filter equals this time web app. We're going to add parcel. The parcel is our bundler, so that's going to do that wrapping up of all the applications. So it's just downloading those, and it's going to so yeah, we must have a more recent version than I had previously. Hopefully it won't take too long. There we go. So that's installed parcel for us, and as you can see on the top left here, we've created our node modules folder. We're going to install, and that's our dev dependency because we don't actually need it to run the app. We're using it to build the app, and then we will add now Bootstrap. The Bootstrap's going to be a styling. It's going to add some nice styling, so all our like buttons, inputs and text boxes already have some styling pre-arranged for us, so we don't have to write that all ourselves. We are also going to install React. So React is the framework that we're going to use to build our app. We're going to use React Bootstrap, which is then a kind of mediator between the two. So React Bootstrap will have already React components set up to use the Bootstrap styling. We're going to have React DOM, so that's how we manipulate the object model, the document object model, which is what represents the web page. And we also will do React router DOM, and we'll use that later, maybe not in this tutorial, to show how we can have different routes. So when you have your different login pages or home pages, settings page, we're going to be using the React router there to navigate between the two. So we'll install those. Hopefully those should already mostly be downloaded. If not, they'll just take a moment. And then there's a couple more we want to do, because React doesn't come with the TypeScript types installed. We have to get those from another package, and that's @types React and @types React DOM. So we just add those to the web app. I'll just go and grab those. There we go. And as you can see, our package.json here on the file is being slowly updated with all the dependencies. There'll be a couple more that we add, one being our client and one for JSON web tokens as well, but we won't be covering those just today. So that's the bits there to basically build our Hello World app. And now we're going to just update the scripts one to say, okay, how do we run our app when we're developing? And we're going to use a script called start. We'll name it start. And what it's going to do is just run parcel index.html. And what we're also going to add, and this will be important in a later tutorial, but worth adding now before I forget, a proxy rc.json. And in here, we're going to write /API is equivalent to and we're going to target our server. HTTP localhost 3000. So what we're doing here is when Parcel runs and builds the app, and we're going to have this dev server running, what we'd have it in the cloud if it was running on a like full cloud application. You can imagine having the website at todo.com, and you probably have the server running in the same domain path. So it would be known as todo.com//API/user login. But because we're running whilst we're in development, we're going to be running the server on a separate port. Here it's port 3000, and when we run the parcel, I believe it's 1234. They're actually on separate ports. So when you do that /API, it'll be on 1234/API rather than 3000/API. So this is just making that like reconnection, remapping for us. So we can write in our code that it is on its own single server. So when we see / it'll just rewrite those, so it's pointing to 3000 for our server. So that's all written there, and we want to then change our package.json up at the top, and we're going to have our, as we've got a start server here, we can do a start let's say webapp, and it's going to do pnpm-f. So we're going to say filter on the webapp package, run it start command, and then to run both together, we'll have a top level start command, and that's going to be pnpm-w start server and pnpm-w start a web app. So we're going to run both together. Okay, so it's just running them in parallel together. So with those all configured, we need to actually give it the index.html, the boilerplate, to create this hello world. So in webapp, we'll create an index.html file, which is going to be our entry point. I'm just going to copy and paste this one over because it just takes a lot of writing. I'll just run through it now, and you'll get this from the repository itself. So this is just from another. There you go. So we call it to-do app. So what we have here is our HTML file. So it's saying it's .html format, HTML language in English. In the header of the HTML file, we're going to be using UTF-8. The viewport, that's for just helping for scaling on different devices, and compatibility modes. Then we just have a title. So when you see the title in your tabs on your browser, that's typically this title here. And then what we will create in the body is a empty div container with ID app, which is where we're going to run our application. And then it checks whether JavaScript is running in the browser. If not, it'll declare an error. And then here we have script to run our module, which is going to be from the source index.tsx. So we need to create that file now, and that's going to be our starting point for our app. So index.tsx. In here, this is going to be like the top level entry. What we are going to do is first grab from the Bootstrap package the CSS. So it's going to just grab that CSS file, which is a styling file, and that's going to be imported into our web app. We will then create a container, or variable called container, and this is going to grab, so it's going to get element ID. So that's grabbing that div element in our index.html file. So that's grabbing this one here. So we've got a reference to it in our JavaScript. And we just do a simple if the container exists, we'll then create our root entry point to our application. So we're going to go create root, which comes from our React DOM client. We give it that div container, and then we're going to then render our application through that root. So that's a very like top entry level point. And now we're going to create like the hello world bit of our app. So this is actually like the start of our application, and we're going to call that app.tsx. And you may have noticed just there we've capitalized the A in the app.tsx because the typical standards is to always put your components, which are what React is built out of. So each file, see, we'll be creating a component, which is a little bit of the website. So a React website might have a nav bar, which is at the top, a content section, and a footer. You could imagine those as three separate components, and then they'll be imported into this larger app component then and builds together to become our application. Enables us to use code a lot throughout these applications. So what we want to do here is export our app component. So it's going to be a function app, and we can then return, and it's going to return some React kind of script. So it's going to be React strict mode, which is going to put our application into strict mode. You can see it's already imported React at the top level there, and let's just put the customary hello world. So that's a h1 tag, and hello world. So all it's doing is that's starting up going to be our little component with hello world within it. And now we need to attach that to our root. So what we can do is import that app, and it's warning us that we haven't used it yet. So now root.render our app, our top level. Let's just clean up those, so we just have that single one there. So now we should have stuck everything together to build our web app. There, well, the proof is in the pudding here, so we're going to go back to the top level and do pm start what do we call web app, sorry, so pm start web app. And now that's gone into the actual web app thing. It's running pm f web app run start. That's it. So there's a couple of little warnings. So it's realized that there's a dependency that we need while building. It's gone and grabbed that. So don't worry, that'll be the first time when you build it, it was created that. It's now saying the server is running at localhost 1234. And what you'll see is it's created a dist directory where our files, the compiled files, are stored. So here we go, it's got the map, so we can reference, that helps us reference the actual code that it was built from. And then these are like the minified versions of the CSS and JavaScript. So we have a single JavaScript and single CSS file, and then the index.html. It creates a little cache folder, and that's just to help when developing now, it's going to hot reload. So when we make some edits here, it'll try and rebuild the app on the fly and then show it to us on our web browser. So that really helps us to just develop quickly. The cache makes that process much quicker. So because it creates those couple of directories and they can always be rebuilt, it's always good to add those to the gitignore file. So we just need to add parcel/cache and dist to the folders, and there you go, you can see them faded out on our side there. And with that sorted out there, we can now go to our browser, and I can show you what it looks like. So sorry, this is on my other screen. Grab a tab, got localhost 1234 on it. Oop. For some reason it hasn't shown. Okay, so I've got here, there we go, on localhost 1234, but seems to be an error that it's not showing the hello world bit. So it's just got a couple of things. One aspect would be good is that you can always install the React developer tools, and they will help you debug what is happening. So functional fact, this may happen when you return a component instead of a component //. So what we might have done here, I'll just double check. I believe that's right. Yes. So what I've done here is given it the function here of app. What we need to do is just put this in some arrows. There we go. So it's like a HTML tag, and it automatically ends itself. And there we go. It's updated, and it's now treated it as a HTML bit of tech component, and we've got our hello world. And that is all the boilerplate and set up to start building our application. So yeah, next episode will be a case of now starting to build that up. So I think we'll be looking at doing the different routes, and also adding a top level context. So where we will have our client, so that client piece of code is then available throughout our app to be able to make queries to and from the server. So thanks very much for listening, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye bye.